Hello and welcome. I hope you're safe and well. My name is Lois Cordelia. Today we're going to do some fun experimental art using instant coffee. You're going to need instant coffee granules. It does need to be instant coffee. You'll never get the same intensity of pigment using real coffee, however strong you make it. You're going to need hot water and not a great deal of it. You're also going to need a flat-bottomed container of some sort. This is one of those little clip-tight, airtight containers, which is quite useful for keeping your coffee pigment fresh for later, if you want to. Or a plate will do just as well, as long as it's flat and not too heavily patterned, so you can see what you're doing. So let's take some of our coffee. I'm going to take a fair bit of this. And we don't want a lot of water in here. That's going to be more than enough to begin with. We can always add some more. Now, what I want to do now is mash this up as well as I possibly can to smooth out the granules to make a sort of coffee soup or coffee paste. You can see the sort of consistency of this. It doesn't want to be too watery if you can avoid it. We need something to paint onto. Now, I'm a big fan of upcycling and recycling existing materials that you've already got lying around at home. So have a think. Here's a coffee painting, for example, that I did on the back of a Kellogg's cornflakes packet. But you might have things like envelopes. These are old envelopes, the sort of thing that a bank statement comes in. Some of these are vaguely coffee coloured already, so you'll need just that bit more of the coffee pigment. Or you've got white envelopes, which are very nice. You can, of course, upcycle these in the sense of actually posting them. Or you can use clean, fresh envelopes. Maybe send something to a friend. These are all examples of little envelopes that I've done. That's a recycled one using this sort of technique. Or you might have other ideas of things to paint onto. So I want to encourage you to be as inventive and creative as you like. A water pot is going to be handy for cleaning your tools and also thinning out your pigment if you want to. Lastly, we're going to need mark making tools. All I mean by that is tools that will create interesting marks. Of course, you could use a paintbrush, or you could have a look around your home and see what tools you have that could be adapted to make interesting marks. That's a glue spreader, plastic cutlery, various kinds. Old toothbrushes work very well. An old comb, a kitchen spatula, drinking straw, feathers, makeup brushes perhaps. Bits of sponge are really nice for texture. Think also about what you might find to print with. Now these are store cards, the sort of loyalty card that you get in a shop. And these are very easy to chop up into custom shapes, which means you have each of these different lengths to print with. Here's our coffee pigment all ready. And now let's take one of these old envelopes and just use it to experiment with. I would really recommend that you spend some time experimenting to begin with before you launch into your masterpiece. Let's just see what each of these different tools can do. So we're going to take each one and just dab it onto here, maybe shift things around. Begin to get a feel for what that tool can do. this sort of exercise might well set you thinking of things that you want to do anyway. The glue spreader is going to be quite useful for doing very thin lines. If you've got one of these store cards that you've chopped up, remember that you've got different lengths to play with. A plastic straw. Hopefully you can see there the sort of range of different mark making ability we have just using these very basic tools. If you haven't got access to store cards or bits of plastic of that sort, you can of course use a bit of card. This happens to be a box of coffee bags, but what we want is the straight edges that come with this, and we can also cut this up into custom shapes. Right, let's see if we can recreate something a bit like this spider's web. You might have a different size or shape of envelope, it really doesn't matter. We can use either the plastic store cards or we can use a bit of card. And what we want to think about is where we're going to place it, where the centre of it is going to be, and then we can begin printing outwards from that. Try to get a bit of variety in the spacing between them, and we can chop this up to make different lengths. Spiders' webs are not perfect, so there's no expectation to make this a perfect specimen. Now if we chop this up really small, we've got a very short edge there to work with. And we can more or less use just a point of it to begin to drag that coffee paint around. And we're going to spiral outwards from the centre. If you get to that sort of point, you can more or less print directly. So with each line you're getting slightly larger. Again, don't worry about these being too perfect. Spiders' webs are not perfect. The more sort of slightly random it is, the more authentic and convincing it will look. add a little spider to this. So let's just print a little line downwards. And then you want a little sort of diamond shape for its body and some legs, very roughly speaking. A little bit more for the rest of the body. Now, if we want to create something a bit like these fir trees here, take your straight edge, place it in the coffee, decide how large you want that tree to be, and then you want to take something like either a fork. A fork works pretty well for this. Let's put another one in here. Or possibly a comb. A plastic comb works pretty well. To do the other side, I'm going to actually turn them over and work the other way. And we can add a bit more coffee. Even the edge of your bit of card will work, but will be less sort of regular and predictable. What you're doing is to move that coffee pigment around on the page. You can see there the difference in those different sorts of tools. This is a really easy way to make your own Christmas cards, for example. Let's add a little bit of a ground there. I'm not worrying too much about getting finger marks everywhere, that's all part of it. We could add, with a very short piece, we could add maybe a little star or something. If you want to do something just that little bit more ambitious, let's have a go at recreating this ship. For this, I'm going to start with a fairly long piece of card, or you can use one of the store cards. This is always going to be quite firm. This is slightly more flimsy and slightly more absorbent. So again, the whole length of that. Decide where you want your ship, which direction it's going, and we're going to start by printing a series of lines, roughly parallel, slightly different lengths ideally. Let's put that there, and you want to just drag that down. Let's drag that down. You can see there how I'm recreating that part of the ship there. Right, let's use the shorter length now. Again, just on there, let's print, 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 print. Whoops. Again, that's where the plastic cards will be much less flimsy than these. And like something like that. And we're going to drag the coffee around. So you're placing the whole length of that on the paper and dragging it down, or whatever shape you want it. Dragging it down to make the sails. Now we can use just the very corner, if you like, to make some little flags. And we might want some rigging. So again, we can just print, or drag paint across. Let's put another bit of the rigging in like so, for example. We haven't left much space here, but let's put some waves in, something like that. You're just moving with the feel of those waves. Something like this. This is just a sort of plastic medicine dispenser measuring thing. Just going to get the paint around the edges of it, and we can print with that. Let's add a tiny bit of clouds, for example, and for that I'm just placing that flat on there and moving it in a circular motion like so. And again, just using that very corner, we can do little, oops, that's actually getting a bit worn, so let's use a fresh piece. This doesn't happen with the plastic, obviously. We can use that just like a sort of a pen to make the little gulls. I'll be back with some more art related activities soon. In the meantime, please stay safe and well.